I stopped dreaming about Karthid 3 years ago. That's what I told myself anyway. The truth was darker. I'd simply learned to wake up before the screaming started. Before I saw their compound eyes reflecting the fire of their burning hive ships. Before I remembered what we did to win, 20 years of peace, 20 years of medals gathering dust and memorial speeches that meant nothing to the dead. Humanity rebuilt. We erected monuments. We told ourselves we were the heroes. Then Titan started bleeding. The first transmission came through standard channels, a maintenance report from Colony 7 buried in the methane fields near Kraken Mare. 3 miners hadn't reported for shift rotation. Happens sometimes in deep extraction. Men get tired, men get careless, men die. The second transmission was flagged Priority Alpha. They'd found the bodies. I was in my quarters on Ganymede Station when Admiral Vex summoned me to the observation deck where Earth hung like a blue promise against the infinite black. His reflection in the viewport looked older than the man behind me. "Korr," he said without preamble, "do you remember the Bone Gardens?" My stomach dropped. Of course I remembered. Every soldier who fought in the Karthid War remembered the Bone Gardens, those horrific displays the Dominion used to mark territory. Skeletal remains arranged in precise geometric patterns, held together with a resin their bodies secreted. Not random carnage, ritual, communication. That was 20 years ago, I said carefully. We glassed their homeworld. We hunted every ship, every colony. Look at these. He handed me a data pad. 3 human bodies, or what remained of them. Bones arranged in a spiral pattern I knew too well, the Karthid victory sigil. But the resin holding them together was fresh. "This is impossible," I whispered. "Impossible would be convenient." Vex's voice was granite. "We sent a forensic team." They disappeared. Then, the backup team. Silent for 48 hours. Titan Station reports hearing sounds in the lower mining shafts. Clicking sounds. That clicking. Christ, I'd heard it in my nightmares for 2 decades. The Karthid communicated through rapid mandible percussion combined with pheromones. It sounded like bones breaking in rhythm. "You're sending me down there." It wasn't a question. "You know them better than anyone alive, Ryven. You were there when we cracked their hive mind network. You understand how they think." I understand how they thought. Past tense. We made sure of that. Vex turned to face me fully. His eyes held something I hadn't seen since the war. Genuine fear. Then explain the bodies. Explain the sounds. Explain why we're losing people to an enemy that doesn't exist. I looked back at the images. The precision of the bone arrangement. The ritual significance. The Karthid didn't do anything without meaning. "What does it say?" I asked. "The pattern. What message are they sending?" Vex's jaw tightened. "Our xenolinguists analyzed it. Roughly translated, it means, 'We remember.'" Task Unit Echo 9 assembled in the drop bay of the UHS Retribution, a name that felt like tempting fate. 6 of us, each carrying enough firepower to level a city block. Lieutenant Mara Thane ran final diagnostics on her neural interface, her movements precise and practiced. She'd been too young for the Karthid War, only 12 when we won. To her, the Dominion was history, not memory. Sergeant Daxon Reeve checked his plasma rifle for the 4th time. Dax had fought in the war. Lost his entire platoon to a Karthid ambush on Europa. He'd been killing them in his mind ever since. Dr. Ellen Vora adjusted her scanner array, seemingly oblivious to the tension. She was a civilian contract, xenobiology specialist who'd made her career studying Karthid remains. "If there are surviving Karthid on Titan," she said, "this represents an unprecedented opportunity for them to kill us," Dax interrupted. "That's what they do. That's all they do." "Shut it down," I commanded. "We go in quiet. Recon only. If there are survivors, human or otherwise, we assess and extract. No heroes, no vendettas. Are we clear? The drop to Titan took 18 minutes that felt like 18 hours. Colony 7 squatted on the edge of Kraken Mare like a mechanical tumor. The exterior lights were on. The airlocks cycled normally. Everything looked operational. Everything looked wrong. Life signs, I asked as we touched down. Mara studied her scanner. Negative. No human signatures within range. But there's something else. Heat signatures in the lower levels. Could be equipment, but the pattern is irregular, almost like breathing. We entered through the main airlock, weapons raised. The colony interior was intact, but abandoned. Coffee cups sat half full on tables. A child's toy lay discarded in a corridor. People had left in a hurry, but not in panic. There were no signs of struggle, no blood, no bodies, just that clicking sound echoing up from below. Dr. Vora's scanner chirped. "Commander, I'm detecting organic compounds in the air. Karthid pheromones. But there's something strange about the signature. It's different, evolved." "How long?" I asked. "To evolve this significantly?" "Generations. Multiple reproductive cycles." She looked up, her face pale. "Commander, if there are Karthid down there, they've been breeding. For years." The lights went out. Emergency strips flickered to life, bathing everything in red. And in that crimson glow, I saw movement at the far end of the corridor. Something tall and angular, moving with that distinctive arthropod gait. "Contact!" Dax raised his rifle. "Hold fire!" I commanded. Because what stepped into the light wasn't quite Karthid. It wore human clothing, a mining jumpsuit, torn and modified. Its body was wrong, though. Too tall. Joints bent at angles humans couldn't manage. The head turned toward us, and I saw something that would haunt me forever. A human face, mostly. The eyes were too large, too dark, reflecting light like an insect's. The jaw wasn't quite right, opening slightly to reveal mandibles beneath. But the expression, God, the expression was pure human terror. It spoke. "Please." The voice was distorted, clicking consonants struggling through a mouth not designed for speech. "Please. They're coming. Hide. Before the matron." The words cut off as something seized it from behind, dragging it backward into the darkness. The screams, half-human wail, half-Karthid shriek, echoed long after the darkness swallowed it whole. We found the first hybrid nest in sub-level 4. The mining shaft had been expanded, reshaped into something organic. The metal walls were covered in a secretion that had hardened into a resinous coating, the same substance used in the bone gardens. But this wasn't random. This was architecture. Living architecture. "Jesus Christ," Mara whispered. Cocoons hung from the ceiling, dozens of them, each roughly human-sized. Some were translucent enough to see the shapes inside, bodies, some humans, some not. "Metamorphosis chambers," Dr. Vora said, her scanner humming. "They're using a process similar to insect pupation, but accelerated. Genetic recombination on a massive scale. This is revolutionary. They're not just breeding, they're engineering themselves." "Using our people as raw material," Dax growled. I moved deeper into the chamber. The cocoons swayed slightly in air currents that shouldn't exist down here. Then I realized with dawning horror that the resin coating wasn't coating the walls at all. It was the walls. Hundreds of hybrid forms pressed against each other, their bodies forming the structure itself. Camouflaged, waiting. They peeled away in a chittering wave. "Open fire!" Plasma bolts lit the chamber like lightning, cutting into the mass. But for every hybrid that fell, 2 more emerged. They came at us from all directions, ceiling, walls, floor, moving with terrifying speed. Up close, their transformation was clearer. Some were barely changed. Humans with chitinous patches on their skin, eyes that reflected too much light. Others were nearly full Karthid, only recognizable as human by their size or the remnants of clothing they wore, and they fought with both human tactics and Karthid ferocity. One grabbed Dax, mandibles spreading to strike. He jammed his rifle into its mouth and fired. The body fell, and I saw its face, young, maybe 20, with a tattoo visible through the carapace on its neck. Someone's son, someone's brother, someone who'd become something else. Fall back, I fired in controlled bursts, covering Mara as she dragged Dr. Vora toward the exit. Regroup at the airlock. We sealed ourselves in the airlock, plasma torches fusing the door shut. It wouldn't hold long. Already I could hear them on the other side, cutting through with molecular precision. Then a voice. Female, human, but with that distinctive clicking undertone. Commander Ryven Korr. My blood froze. They knew my name. We know you, the voice continued. The butcher of Ganymede. The one who burned our nurseries, who killed our queens, who made us into ghosts. I stepped closer to the door. If you're looking for an apology, we don't want apologies. We want you to understand, to see. Then you can choose whether mercy is possible or whether your species is as dead inside as you made ours. The door exploded inward. They didn't kill us. That was the first shock. Hybrids poured through the breach, moving with that fluid arthropod grace. They could have slaughtered us. Instead, they disarmed us with surgical precision. Not violent, just efficient. Dax fought. Of course he fought. It took 4 of them to restrain him, and even then he was screaming, "Kill me! You know what I did to your kind." The hybrid holding him, more human than most, with only slight chitinous ridges along her jaw, looked at him with something that might have been pity. "We know Sergeant Daxon Reeve," she said. Her voice was clearer than the others, only slightly affected by mandibles. "We know Europa. We know the nursery. We know the children you burned. And we know why. Your platoon, the ambush, your friends screaming in the dark while our warriors fed. We remember their faces too, Sergeant. We remember everything. That's our curse. They led us deeper, and I realized we were descending into something that predated the mining colony. Natural caverns expanded by Karthid engineering, creating vast chambers that stretched beyond our light. The walls pulsed with bioluminescence, not random, but patterned, deliberate. "How long?" I asked the hybrid leading us. She seemed to be in command. "How long have you been here?" "We were always here, Commander. Some of us. The war didn't end 20 years ago. It just went underground." She glanced back, and in profile, she looked almost fully human. Beautiful, even. "When you glassed our homeworld, a few ships escaped. Damaged, desperate. They crashed in Titan's methane seas. The crews survived, barely. And the colonists? Found them, helped them. Some died, yes. In the beginning, our people were still wounded, still afraid, still angry. But others." She paused at a massive door made from that strange resin. "Others chose differently." The door opened onto a chamber that defied comprehension. T was a city, a living city. Thousands of hybrids in various stages of transformation, creating a society that was both human and Karthid. I saw workshops where hybrid craftsmen built tools using both human technology and Karthid biological engineering. I saw nurseries where children, God help me, played games that blended human laughter with Karthid clicking. And I saw humans, real, unchanged humans, living among them, working alongside them, a man teaching hybrid children to read, a woman heavily pregnant, accepted food from a Karthid warrior with easy familiarity. "What is this?" Mara breathed. "This is what happens when enemies stop fighting long enough to listen." "We call it Haven." The matron named it before she changed. She led us to the heart of Haven, where the architecture became more organic, more alive. We entered a chamber that was part cathedral, part hive, and there, suspended in a web of bioluminescent strands, was something that had once been Karthid royalty, Matron Seshiral. She was dying. Even I could see that. Her carapace was cracked, leaking fluid that her hybrid children collected reverently in containers. Her compound eyes were clouded. But when she saw me, she moved, a slight tilt of her massive head. When she spoke, it was in perfect, unaccented English. Commander Korr, the man who killed my sisters, who burned my world, who taught us that mercy is weakness. I found my voice. You started the war. You invaded our colonies, killed millions. Yes. Her mandibles clicked. Not aggression, I realized, but something like bitter amusement. We did. We were conquerors, consumers. We saw you as resources, inferior. We were wrong. But by the time we learned, you had already decided we couldn't coexist. You gave us no choice. No, we gave you every excuse. She shifted, and I saw the scars crossing her thorax, plasma burns, old wounds. I survived your final assault because I was in the deep nursery, the children's chamber. I heard them burn. I heard them scream. 3,000 larvae, not warriors, not threats, children. The memory hit me like a physical blow, the tactical report. High-value target, neutralize breeding capability. We'd framed it as military necessity. We'd called it a win. After, Seshiral continued, I fled, found others, crashed here, and met resistance. Miners who fought us, wounded us. We fought back, killed some, would have killed all. What stopped you? A child. Our guide stepped forward. She knelt before the matron with clear affection. This is Kira, Seshiral said. 20 years ago she was human, 14 years old, daughter of the colony's chief engineer. She found me bleeding in a mining shaft, and instead of running, instead of calling for help. The matron's voice cracked, a sound I hadn't thought Karthid could make. She bandaged my wounds, shared her food, talked to me like I was worthy of conversation. Kira spoke softly. I'd seen the war footage. Karthid knew what Karthid had done, but when I saw her, she was just hurt, alone, scared. Turns out fear looks the same in every language. She taught me your language, Seshiral continued, your music, your stories, and I taught her ours. Taught her to see what we saw, feel what we felt. The pheromone communication, the collective memory, the connections we shared. And one day, Kira asked me, what if we could be both? Dr. Vora gasped. The transformation process. It wasn't forced. It was collaborative, Kira confirmed, emerging. The matron shared her genetic material. I accepted it. I welcomed it. And we evolved together. I looked around the chamber, understanding dawn. The bone gardens, the ritual displays. You weren't declaring war. We were reminding you we exist, Kira said. For 20 years we've lived in secret, growing, learning, becoming something new. But surface mining was pushing deeper. Eventually, you'd find us. So we decided to announce ourselves first, on our terms, by killing people. 3 people, Commander. 3 who discovered Haven and tried to call for extermination, who saw what we were and decided we were abominations. We defended ourselves. And yes, we made sure you'd understand the message, that you'd send someone who knew Karthid culture, someone who might understand. You wanted me here. We wanted someone who remembered, Seshiral said, who carried the weight of what was done, who might be capable of choosing differently. Choosing what? The matron gestured, and several hybrids approached, carrying something wrapped in cloth. They laid it before me and pulled back the fabric. A Karthid queen larva, barely developed, maybe 3 feet long, but unlike any queen I'd seen. The carapace held human features, a face pressing against the chitin, almost human in structure. The eyes were closed, but I could see they would be somewhere between human and Karthid. Our future, Seshral whispered. True synthesis. Not humans pretending to be Karthid, or Karthid mimicking humans. Something genuinely new. A bridge. The lava stirred. It opened its eyes. They were green, human green, and it looked at me with intelligence, with awareness. She'll be our next matron, Kira said. When Seshral dies, soon now, this child will lead Haven. She carries the memories of both species, the capacity for both mercy and strength. She could help us coexist, truly coexist. Or, Dax's voice came from behind me, cold and flat. She could be the first of a new army, a perfect infiltrator, human enough to pass, Karthid enough to coordinate. We're asking you to let us live, Kira shot back, to let evolution happen, to stop choosing genocide every time something scares you. I looked at Mara. She was staring at the lava, tears streaming down her face. She's beautiful, she whispered. I looked at Dax. His hand was near his sidearm, and his eyes held that familiar light, the one I'd seen during the war, the one that didn't see beings, only threats. The lava reached out one small, partially chitinous hand toward me. Commander, Kira said quietly, what do you choose? I chose wrong. Or maybe there was no right choice. Maybe that's the real horror, that sometimes every option leads to suffering, and leadership means deciding whose suffering counts more. I chose to report Haven as a containment-level threat, potential xenoform infiltration, recommended immediate sterilization protocols. I thought I was protecting humanity. I was protecting fear. The response came faster than expected. The fleet must have already been mobilizing assets. The Retribution repositioned into bombardment orbit. Countdown initiated. 12 hours until plasma charges dropped. We need to evacuate, I told Kira. Everyone, the children. You can't evacuate evolution, Commander. Her voice was cold, empty. You can't relocate hope. You can only destroy it. The hybrids retreated deeper into Haven, taking the children, the lava, everything they'd built. Dax watched them go with grim satisfaction. Mara wouldn't look at me. Dr. Vora was filing her observations. Nobody called it genocide. We called it containment. Then the screaming started. Surface teams had arrived, full military deployment. Marines in combat armor, equipped for xenomorph extermination. They weren't here to arrest or evacuate. They were here to cleanse. And Haven fought back. The first squads pushed into the lower levels and simply disappeared. No comms, no telemetry, just silence. Then their biosigns flatlined. The Marines were being picked apart with surgical precision. The hybrids weren't just defending, they were hunting, using the living architecture against us, flowing through walls, attacking from impossible angles. They're using pheromone coordination, Dr. Vora observed clinically. The entire Haven is acting like a single organism, collective defense. I opened the command channel. All units fall back. Establish defensive perimeter. Negative, Commander. Admiral Vex's voice cold and absolute. We're not retreating. We're completing the mission. All forces, weapons free, burn them out. The assault became a nightmare. Marines deployed incendiary rounds, plasma charges, and molecular disruption fields. They burned through Haven level by level, and I watched the biosignatures wink out one by one. Hybrids, humans, children. The tactical display didn't differentiate, it just counted bodies. Commander! Mara grabbed my arm, pulling me toward the monitors. Look, a live feed from the main assault. Marines cornering a group of hybrids, civilians, no weapons, trying to shield the children behind them. The lead hybrid was mostly human, a young woman who might have been beautiful before fear twisted her features. She was clicking frantically, trying to communicate, but the Marines didn't have translators. I didn't care. "Hold fire!" I screamed into the comms. "Those are non-combatants." The plasma rounds cut them down before I finished the sentence. One of the children, barely 5, more human than Karthid, tried to run, didn't make it 3 steps. I watched her die. I watched her small body jerk and fall, watching the light leave eyes that had never known war. Dax was beside me, and his expression held no triumph, just emptiness. "This is what you wanted, Commander. This is what you called in. This is genocide," Mara whispered. "This is murder." The assault pushed deeper. Haven's architecture was collapsing, the living walls dying, the bioluminescence fading. The hybrids fought with desperate ferocity now, no longer coordinated defense, but primal survival. They used their own bodies as weapons, throwing themselves at Marines in suicide charges. Buying time. For what? I wondered aloud. Dr. Vora checked her scanners. The nursery. The deepest chamber. That's where the lava is. The new queen. They're giving their lives so she can escape. Mara was already pulling up schematics. The mining tunnels. They extend for kilometers. Some connect to natural cavern systems that reach the methane seas if they could get to the emergency vehicles, the submersibles. "They'd never make it," Dax said. "Our forces have those approaches covered. Unless," Mara continued, "someone created a distraction. Draw our forces away from the extraction points." We looked at each other. "No," I said. "Absolutely not. Helping them escape." Mara's voice was steel. "Why not, Commander? We're already complicit in their extermination. Might as well choose which side of history we die on." Before I could stop her, she opened a secure channel to Haven's emergency frequencies. She spoke quickly in both English and clicking Karthid. "Kira, if you can hear this. Northern Access Tunnel, Section 7. Submersibles are staged but unguarded. We'll create an opening. You'll have maybe 5 minutes. Get the children out. Get the Queen out. Run." "Lieutenant!" Dax reached for her, but I blocked him. "Let her," I said softly. "Commander, this is the right thing," I finished. For once, finally, the right fucking thing. I opened the tactical channel. "All units, this is Korr. We have possible hostile movement in the eastern sectors. Concentrate forces. Full assault protocol. Forces repositioned, creating exactly the gap Mara had promised. And through our remaining cameras, I watched them go. Kira leading, carrying the lava queen in her arms. Other hybrids surround her, forming a protective barrier. The children in the center, some crying, some silent with shock. They ran through corridors slick with the blood of their family, past bodies of those who'd bought them this chance, toward a submersible they might not reach, toward freedom they might not deserve, toward a future I'd tried to destroy. "They're going to make it," Mara breathed. "Oh God, they're actually—" The explosion erased the rest of her sentence. The submersible bay. Some Marine doing their job, following protocol, had seen them, called in an airstrike. The plasma charge hit with surgical precision. The feed went white, then black, then showed only smoke and melted metal and small bodies that would never grow up. Kira's body lay across the lava, protecting it even in death. The Queen was still alive, barely. Those green eyes staring at nothing, her small hand reaching toward something she'd never find, reaching toward hope. I watched her die. I watched evolution end. I watched the bridge between species turn to ash. And I felt nothing. Just nothing. Mission accomplished. Admiral Vex's voice came through, satisfied. Haven neutralized. All hostile elements eliminated. I turned off the comm. Dax was pale, staring at the screen. Whatever he'd wanted, this wasn't it. Mara was weeping silently, her face buried in her hands. And I was the butcher of Ganymede again, the man who killed children because they might be threats, the soldier who followed orders because thinking hurt too much. "Sir," a young marine, his voice shaking. "Sir, we found something in the deep levels, before the charges hit, a recording. Someone named Kira wanted you to hear it." He played it. Kira's voice, calm despite the chaos. "Commander Korr, if you're hearing this, we're dead. All of us. The future you feared won't happen. The threat is neutralized. Humanity is safe. I hope it was worth it. I hope you sleep better knowing we're gone. I hope." Her voice cracked. "I hope you never understand what you've lost. What we all lost. Because if you ever do understand, it will destroy you." The recording continued. But it wasn't Kira anymore. It was the Lava Queen. That impossible voice, ancient and infant, speaking words she'd learned from collective memory. To whoever hears this, we were wrong. We understand now. Humanity is not prey. It is not a resource. It is a reflection, mirror of what we are. We wanted to stop. I wanted to live. Please, the children do not need to die for our mistakes. Please. The same words, the exact same words Vashakiral had spoken 20 years ago. The transmission we'd ignored, the plea we'd burned, history repeating because we refused to learn. The recording ended. Silence pressed against us like a physical thing. "Commander," Dax said quietly, "what have we done?" I looked at the screens. The body counts, at the smoke rising from Haven's ruins, at the children who'd never threatened anyone, at the queen who'd been born to bridge worlds and died before she could speak. "We won," I said. My voice sounded dead even to me. "We always win." 3 days later, I returned to Haven alone, against orders, against protocol, against every regulation that supposedly kept humanity safe. I took a shuttle down to the surface, landing in the dead zone where nothing lived anymore. The orbital bombardment had been thorough. The mining colony was slag. The upper levels collapsed. Haven's beautiful living architecture was charred bone. But something pulled me deeper. I descended into the ruins with a single light, my breath echoing in the environmental suit. The walls no longer pulsed. The bioluminescence was extinguished, but the architecture remained, a skeleton of what had been. I found them in the nursery, bodies arranged with careful precision. The hybrids had done this themselves in those final moments. Not a bone garden signaling war, but a memorial, an archive of who they'd been. Each body was positioned with care, human and hybrid side by side. Adults protect children even in death. And in the center, preserved somehow in a stasis field that flickered with dying power, the Lava Queen, still alive, barely. Her chitin was cracked, her breathing shallow, but those green eyes opened when my light found her, focused on me with terrible awareness. She knew who I was, what I'd done, what I'd chosen, and she spoke. "Commander Korr, the butcher, the one who ends things." I knelt beside her, my knees hitting the ground without conscious thought. "I'm sorry. God, I'm so..." Sorry is a human word, means regret without action, means guilt without change. She coughed, a wet, clicking sound. "We learned all your words, your concepts, your hopes. We thought that meant we understood you." "You did. Better than we understood you. No. We understood your potential, not your fear, not your need to destroy what you don't control." Her small hand reached out, half-human fingers ending in chitinous points. "In Karthid's memory, passed through queens, I remember your species' first wars, when you killed each other for being different colors, different beliefs, different tribes. You never stopped. You just found new things to fear. We can change. You can't. because you don't want to. Change requires surrender, requires admitting you were wrong, requires seeing enemies as people. She clicked softly. Karthid laughter, bitter and knowing. Your species would rather die than do that, would rather kill everything than risk being vulnerable. Then why did Kira help Sesharal? Why did humans choose to become hybrids? Exceptions, beautiful exceptions, proof that individuals can transcend species. But individuals aren't civilizations, Commander, and civilizations choose safety over growth, fear over hope, genocide over risk. I had no answer, no defense, just the weight of bodies surrounding us. The stasis field is failing, I said. I could bring you to my ship, get you to a medical facility. Maybe what? Save me, so can your people study me, dissect me, use my genetics to build weapons? She shook her head, a gesture she'd learned from human memory. No, I die here, with my people, with the bridge that could have been. It's not too late. It was always too late, Commander. From the moment you made your report, from the moment you chose fear. She closed her eyes. But I want you to understand something. I want you to carry it. Because you'll live, and we won't, and someone should remember what you destroyed. Tell me, Haven wasn't just survival. I wasn't just hiding, it was proof. Her breathing was failing. Proof that enemies can love, that evolution includes compassion, that mixing species doesn't create monsters, it creates possibilities. We were going to change everything, human and Karthid learning together, growing together, creating a civilization that honored both survival and kindness. What would it have looked like? Beautiful. A single word carrying lifetimes of lost potential. So beautiful. And you burned it before it could be born. The stasis field collapsed. She had maybe seconds left. I'm sorry, I whispered again. Inadequate, worthless. I know. She touched my hand, that small, hybrid hand that would never grow. That's why it hurts. Because you understand what you've done. Most won't. They'll celebrate. But you'll remember. And that's worse than death. Why tell me this? Why not let me forget? Because someone should suffer for this. Someone should carry the weight of what could have been. Someone should look at stars and see the futures we could have built together and know, always know, that they chose to destroy them. She died in my arms, the last queen, the last bridge, the last possibility. And I held her small body, so light, so fragile, and felt the weight of species genocide settle on my shoulders like a mountain I'd carry forever. In the silence that followed, I heard clicking, faint, distant, coming from deeper in the ruins. I followed it, the deepest chamber, somehow intact, and inside, hidden behind layers of hybrid bioarchitecture that had protected it even from plasma charges. Eggs, dozens of them, small, luminescent, clearly Karthid, but changed. Hybrid eggs, children who might have been the next generation. All dead now. The stasis fields that protected them were offline, but one was different. One egg was larger, more developed, and it was still intact, still protected by a field that pulsed with its own power, as if the dying queen had channeled her last energy into preserving this one. Single. Possibility. I scanned it. The readings made no sense. Genetic stability off the charts. Neural development suggests consciousness before birth. Memory structures that seem to span both species' collective experiences. This wasn't just a hybrid. This was evolution itself, contained in a shell no bigger than my fist. I could destroy it, should destroy it, complete the mission, ensure no trace of Haven survived, or I could save it. And then I saw it, scratched into the wall beside the egg, human writing, Kira's handwriting. Commander, if you found this, you know what we were, what we could have been. This egg is our last hope. our last chance. Not for revenge, not for war, but for proving that bridge was possible, that mercy exists, that evolution includes compassion. If you're the man I think you are, the man who carries guilt because he understands what he's lost, you'll give this child a chance. Please, don't let our dream die completely. Let one seed survive. Just one. I stood there for eternity, or maybe just minutes. Time meant nothing at that moment. Finally, I made my choice. I took the egg, wrapped it carefully in protective materials from my kit, secured it in a shielded container, and carried it back to my shuttle, past the bodies, past the ruins, past the ashes of everything Haven had been. I didn't report it, didn't log it, didn't tell anyone. I hid it in my personal quarters and watched it pulse with that strange, impossible life. And I made a vow, if this child lived, if it developed, if it emerged, I would raise it, teach it, help it understand both species, both perspectives, both possibilities, not as a weapon, as a bridge. The bridge we'd tried to burn, maybe it would work, maybe it would fail, maybe I was making another terrible mistake, but at least for once, I was choosing hope over fear, even if I didn't deserve it, even if it destroyed me, even if it meant betraying everything I'd sworn to protect. I chose differently, and in that choice, I felt something I hadn't felt in 20 years, something like redemption's possibility, or maybe just its ghost. The egg hatched 3 months later. I'd hidden it on a research station at the edge of the system, in quarters I'd requisitioned under false pretenses, watching it develop, watching the life inside grow stronger, more complex, more aware. When the shell finally cracked, I was there. What emerged wasn't human, wasn't Karthid. It was both, was neither, was possibly made flesh. She looked at me with eyes that held generations of memory, spoke with a voice that carried 2 species' wisdom. "Father," she said, not in gratitude, in recognition, the one who killed us, the one who saved me, the contradiction. I had no answer, no excuse, just opened arms, waiting to see if she'd accept them or strike me down. She stepped into my embrace. "My name was going to be Shakira," she whispered, "before you destroyed Haven, before the genocide, before the choice. I'm sorry, I know. But sorry doesn't bring them back, doesn't rebuild Haven, doesn't restore what could have been. No, it doesn't. So why save me? Why risk everything for one hybrid child?" I knelt to meet her eyes directly, because I had to believe it meant something, that Haven meant something, that the bridge wasn't completely destroyed, that maybe, somewhere, somehow, we could learn to coexist. One child against billions of humans who fear me. One bridge against civilizations built on separation. She clicked softly, sadness in both languages. "Father, you saved a symbol, not a species. Maybe symbols matter. Maybe." She walked to the viewport, looking out at the stars. "Tell me something. When you chose to report Haven, when you called in the bombardment, did you know? Did you understand what you were destroying? I thought I was protecting humanity." "From what?" "From, I don't know anymore. From change, from fear, from having to admit we might have been wrong." She was silent for a long time. Then, "In the Karthid collective memory, the one I carry, I can see your war, can see the battles, the nursery burnings, the genocide campaigns, and in the human memories I inherited from my hybrid ancestors, I can see your guilt, your horror, your desperate attempts to justify what you did. And I see a species that chose survival over growth, safety over evolution, fear over hope." She smiled, that heartbreaking expression. "Just like the Karthid did, just like every species does when threatened. That's the truth they didn't want you to see. The truth Haven proved. That human and Karthid weren't opposites. We were mirrors, both capable of love and genocide, both trying to survive in a universe that doesn't care. So what's the answer? How do we coexist? We don't. Not really. Not while species define themselves through opposition. Not while us requires them to exist. She squeezed my hand. But individuals can. Exceptions can. Bridges like me can exist in the spaces between civilizations. I can learn, can grow, can prove it's possible. One child can't change the galaxy. No, but one child can change one mind, and one mind can change another. And slowly, over generations, maybe the bridge gets wider, maybe the fear gets smaller, maybe we become something better than either species alone. Is that hope or delusion? Both. Always both. We stood there in silence, looking at stars that held billions of lives, billions of choices, billions of chances to choose differently. What now? I asked. Now you finish your story, Father. You record what happened, what Haven was, what it could have been, and you make sure someone remembers. And you? I grow. I learn. I become what they died creating. She smiled again. And when I'm ready, I'll find others like me. Other hybrids who might have survived, other bridges who exist in secret, and we'll build something. Not Haven, something new, something hidden enough to survive and visible enough to matter. I pulled her close, this impossible child, this bridge, this hope, and I made one final choice. I activated the recording device, set it to broadcast on all human channels. Let the truth spread like fire. This is Commander Ryven Korr, I said. 20 years ago, we won a war against the Karthid Dominion. We called it victory, called ourselves heroes, built monuments to our triumph. Sesh Kira stood beside me, visible in the frame. Proof. But we lied, I continued. We committed genocide, burned children, destroyed a species not because we had to, but because we were afraid. And when we discovered survivors, when we found hybrids trying to build bridges between species, we burned them too. I showed them Haven, the recordings Dr. Vora had taken. The children are playing, the architecture, the beauty, the possibility. Then I showed them the aftermath, the bodies, the ashes, the memorial that no one would visit. This is what we did, I said. This is who we are. Not heroes, just survivors so desperate to remain dominant that we destroy anything different, anything that threatens our supremacy, anything that requires us to grow. Sesh Kira spoke then, her voice carrying the weight of extinction. My name is Sesh Kira. I am the last of Haven, the last bridge, and I exist to tell you, you can't bury war. It grows inside whoever survives. Inside every decision to choose fear over hope, inside every genocide justified by safety, inside every child who grows up learning that different means enemy. She looked directly at the camera. You thought extinction meant peace, but peace isn't the absence of enemies. It's the presence of coexistence. It's the courage to see others as worthy even when they're different. It's the strength to grow instead of destroy. I took her hand. We failed, I said. Humanity failed. I failed. But failure doesn't mean the end. It means we have to choose, right now, right here, whether to learn, whether to become something better than our fear. Sesh Kira smiled at the camera. This recording will be hunted, destroyed, labeled conspiracy, and Commander Korr will be executed for treason. We both know this. She squeezed my hand. But the truth survives. Always. In every person who sees this and questions. In every individual who chooses differently. In every bridge built despite fear. I looked at my hybrid daughter, my redemption, my penance, my hope. We thought extinction meant peace, I said. My voice is steady despite everything. But you can't bury war. It grows inside whoever survives. We ended the transmission and waited. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Fleet Command issued arrest warrants, public outrage, demands for execution, calls to sterilize the research station, but also questions, doubts. Individuals who watched the recordings and saw what I saw, who looked at Akira and saw not threat but possibility, who chose differently. Not many, not enough to change policy, but enough to matter, enough to plant seeds. When the arrest team arrived, I surrendered without resistance. Let them take me, let them process me through the system designed to punish treason. But I'd already won, because Akira was gone, hidden among the few who'd chosen to help, protected by a network of individuals who believed bridges mattered more than fear. She would survive, she would grow, she would become what Haven could have been. And maybe, generations from now, when my execution was forgotten, she'd prove that coexistence was possible, that evolution included compassion, that mercy was stronger than fear. They executed me at dawn. Standard procedure for treason, clean, efficient, witnessed by officials who needed to see traitors die. I didn't fight, didn't plead, just stood before the firing line and thought about choices, about Haven, about the children who died for being different, about the future we burned because we were afraid, and about one small hybrid girl hidden somewhere among stars, carrying the hope we didn't deserve. My last thought wasn't regret, it was gratitude, that I'd chosen differently, that I'd saved one seed, that failure could become growth. The shots rang out, and in the infinite moment between bullet and death, I felt something like peace. Not forgiveness, not redemption, just understanding. We thought extinction meant peace, but you can't bury war. It grows inside whoever survives, in every choice, in every fear, every moment we decide whether to destroy or to build. And somewhere, in the darkness between stars, Akira was choosing to build, to bridge, to become what we couldn't. The war we couldn't bury had finally ended, not with victory, but with growth.